Dilek Tuna and you're watching A News. Here are the top stories this hour. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy in Azerbaijan for talks with President Ilham Aliyev says he's ready for Russia peace talks if Moscow agrees. Russian attack on Ukraine sends drone debris into Romania, causing damage. Iran's foreign minister is in Pakistan as Islamabad mediates with Washington after previous talks collapse. We start with some breaking news. President Ilham Aliyev and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy held a press conference following their meeting in Azerbaijan. The two leaders expressed satisfaction with the overall level of political relations between the two countries. They highlighted regular political consultations and the work of the Intergovernmental Commission. Both sides also underlined mutual support for each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty. Energy cooperation was among the key issues discussed. Sokar's activity in Ukraine was noted, and prospects for further cooperation in this field were also reviewed. This is not Zelenskyy's first visit to Azerbaijan. He previously visited the country in 2019, shortly after being elected president. President Ilham Aliyev also visited Ukraine in early 2022. The talks are seen as another step towards strengthening cooperation between Azerbaijan and Ukraine across political, economic and humanitarian areas. Also, Zelenskyy noted that he's ready for peace talks in Azerbaijan if Moscow is ready for them. The war in Ukraine is again spilling beyond its borders, highlighting growing security risks for neighbouring NATO states. While both Moscow and Kiev report battlefield gains, the conflict continues to intensify on multiple fronts. Fresh EU support for Ukraine and new sanctions on Russia also signal that the political and economic battle remains far from over.
Russia launched a large-scale air assault on Ukraine. Residents in Kiev took shelter in metro stations. Ukraine's Air Force said 619 drones and 47 missiles were launched overnight. Several regions were hit, with the city of Dnipro reported as the main target. Ukrainian officials said 580 drones and 30 missiles were intercepted. Russia's defense ministry said its forces carried out 6 mass strikes on Ukrainian military targets using long-range precision weapons and attack drones. Moscow claimed the strikes targeted military industrial facilities, fuel, energy and transport infrastructure, as well as military airfields. The ministry also said that over the past week, Russian air defenses had destroyed 50 guided bombs, 8 HIMARS rockets and 2,464 drones. Ukraine's general staff said 194 combat clashes were recorded along the front line over the past day. Ukrainian forces reportedly repelled 36 attacks in the Pokrovsk sector of Donetsk and several assaults in the Luhansk region. Kyiv also claimed to have destroyed 1,175 Russian drones, several tanks and armoured vehicles, as well as artillery and air defence systems. As fighting continued in the Donbass region, Russia's chief of the General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, said the Luhansk region had been fully captured and operations would continue in Donetsk. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy rejected the claim, saying Ukraine had regained positions on more territory this year than it had lost. Meanwhile, drone fragments were found in the southeastern Romanian city of Galati after Russia's overnight attack on Ukraine. Romania's defense ministry said an electricity pole and a household annex were damaged, while no casualties were reported. It was the first incident of property damage on Romanian territory since the war began. Drone debris had previously landed in Romania during attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure.
Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has visited Pakistan as uncertainty continues over stalled talks between Iran and the United States. He was received at Nur Khan Air Base near Islamabad by Pakistani officials and is expected to hold meetings on regional developments and peace efforts. Iranian media said the visit is part of a wider regional tour that also includes Oman and Russia. Planned Iran-US talks have been delayed after Tehran said it has yet to decide on participation. The United States is sending envoys to Pakistan for talks with Iran, despite Tehran ruling out direct negotiations. Mediators are expected to pass messages between the sides.
US envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are due to arrive in Islamabad for talks aimed at easing tensions with Iran as the conflict enters its 9th week. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi is already holding meetings with senior Pakistani officials. However, Tehran says no direct meeting with the United States is planned, adding that its position will instead be passed through Pakistani mediators. The White House maintains that diplomacy is still possible, pointing to what it describes as recent progress.
The Iranians want to talk. They want to talk in person, and so the president is, as I've said many times to all of you, always willing to give diplomacy a chance. So Steve and Jared will be heading to Pakistan tomorrow to hear the Iranians out. We hope progress will be made, and we hope that positive developments will come from this meeting.
The talks come as a fragile ceasefire remains in place, while violence continues in parts of the region. Regional players, including Egypt and Pakistan, say they hope a second round of negotiations could help secure a longer-term ceasefire and reduce escalation.
Tehran is emphasising political cohesion as pressure builds around its foreign policy and security posture. The message from senior officials is aimed both at domestic audiences and outside powers watching the stalled diplomatic track with Washington.
Iran's leadership is presenting a united front, rejecting claims of internal divisions and stressing national unity at a time of rising tensions with the United States and Israel. The messaging comes as the talks between Tehran and Washington remain stalled. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei, in a post on X, repeated themes from his Nowruz message, warning that what he described as hostile media campaigns are trying to influence the hearts and minds of the public and weaken unity. At the same time, the heads of Iran's 3 branches of government, the presidency, parliament, and judiciary, issued a joint statement dismissing suggestions of political differences. According to official media, they said there are no hardliners or moderates in Iran, describing the country as unified under a single path. They also warned that any external aggression would be met with a response. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi also rejected reports of divisions, saying diplomacy and military strategy are working together and that the country remains unified. Meanwhile, Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baghai criticized remarks by U.S. officials accusing Washington of encouraging violence. His condemnation came after U.S. President Donald Trump retweeted and liked a post by an American commentator suggesting the assassination of Iranian officials opposed to a deal between Tehran and Washington. Turaj Shiralilu, Tehran, Foreign News.
Now, diplomatic activity surrounding US-Iran negotiations appears to be gaining momentum once again as Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi arrives in Islamabad and the United States prepares to send senior envoys, including Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. The development comes after earlier uncertainty when talks were effectively off the table due to Iran's refusal to engage in Islamabad, a position that appears to be shifting now amid renewed mediation efforts. So the situation highlights the fragile and often unpredictable nature of diplomacy between Washington and Tehran. Let's bring in our guest now, Osama Rizvi, founder of Rizvi Insights from Lahore, Pakistan, joins us to discuss. Osama, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Now, talks had previously stalled after Iran refused to engage in Islamabad while the United States was willing to proceed. What appears to have changed in Tehran's position now?
Well, that is a very interesting question. And one thing that I personally believe, my personal reading is the involvement of China. We saw last week that there was a call between President Xi and the high leadership of Saudi Arabia, and it was publicized a lot. And then it also had a very categorical development where Xi is supposed to said that he would like the Strait of Hormuz to be open. We need to realize that China depends significantly for its energy exports coming from Straits of Hormuz. Also, Iran's 80 to 90% of oil goes to one country, China. So both have interdependence, and maybe it was China in the background, and of course Pakistan as well. Because we have been reading news of our leadership flying to Tehran, flying to other parts of the world, and convincing them to essentially come once again back to the table. So I think it was China, and of course the brilliant diplomatic efforts of Pakistani leadership that led to this point where we have now both the parties confirming coming to Islamabad for talks.
Okay, and Washington is sending senior envoys, including Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. How significant is this level of engagement in signalling US intent, and does it also signal perhaps that the United States is now willing to adhere to some of the requests on the Iranian side, because they also have vested interest in opening the Strait of Hormuz once again?
Well, so there are two parts to your question. The first one, how serious does this look? I mean, many people are criticizing the fact that both the delegates that are coming to Islamabad are not very experienced negotiators. They don't have a history of involvement in foreign policy. Maybe that is not a very good thing. However, the fact that US is also still willing to talk, and the ceasefire was also extended as much as fragile it is, hint towards the fact that US also wants to be on the table and give diplomacy as a chance. Because frankly, you look at the recently released University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index, it touched its lowest level since 1978, essentially when we started collecting data on this point. So there are so many economic costs for the US and the US consumer. Once again, this is the election year, and body bags and higher prices at the gasoline pump are something that they don't want right now to happen. On the other hand, in terms of listening to the Iranian side, I think it all boils down to two or three facts. The first one is nuclear uranium enrichment, and second is Strait of Hormuz. I think it is not going to be a very quick resolution. I believe personally, if things go well, there is going to be sort of a series of talk, and then we will know what each side comes up with in terms of its demand. It has to be staggered. It has to be incremental. Otherwise, the talks have a chance to fail as well.
And having said that, Osama, mediators are expected to pass messages between the sides because Tehran's still ruling out direct negotiations. How much of that kind of format is coordinated at this stage? Is it even viable? How much do you know about that?
When the first round of talks was decided, even back then, the original format was going to be this format. The name is slipping my mind. It is also a format that has been used previously as well. For instance, 1988 Geneva Accords, and Pakistan was one of the parties that was involved in the accords. So, what happened last time was that during the talks, the format was changed and both parties came face to face. This time, this signals from both sides. This signals political posturing. This signals that all is not well, all is not hunky and dory as we are thinking right now. And as I said in the response to your previous question, this also means there is still a lot of issues, lot of mistrust and distrust that still needs to be resolved. And at this point, Pakistan's success or failure, I mean, there is no point of failure in this because many people are asking about this as well. Wherever the talks go, we cannot control that. This is two warring sovereign countries, not two individuals. They have to take their own decisions, but only the fact that they have been agreeing for diplomacy speaks a lot about the role that the country Pakistan played in the current conflict.
And given the stop-start nature of these negotiations, what indicators should we watch to determine whether this round leads to substantive progress or another deadlock?
Well, I would expect some sort of a breakthrough wherein the following can happen. First, they would agree for another round of negotiations, but that should be complemented or supplemented by, let's say, one or 2 pointers. Maybe the Strait of Hormuz will open twice a week. Maybe the Tehran toll booth, the amount of taxes they're collecting from ships, which amounts to around $2 million per vessel, maybe that would be slashed to 50%. Things like this. I mean, if it is not, then unfortunately, I believe a third round of talks is going to be very difficult. We may see a resumption, unfortunately, of the strikes from both sides as well. Once again, plummeting the region into missile flying across the Gulf countries. And of course, we also have to look at what will the Gulf countries want at the moment. Everyone's stake is involved, and I think everyone would want an end to the conflict. So if something more than the resumption of third round of talks plus some concessions from both sides, if they come, then I would think these are the indicators that things are heading in the positive direction.
Osama, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for your analysis and time.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
The United States military says it has carried out a lethal strike on a vessel in the Eastern Pacific on Friday, allegedly killing 2 suspected narco-terrorists. The strike was authorized by the US Southern Commander, targeted what was described as a vessel linked to a designated terrorist organization. According to their post on X, intelligence had tracked the boat and claimed it was actively involved in narco-trafficking operations. Meanwhile, critics say killing without a trial gives those targeted no chance to defend themselves or prove their innocence. French President Emmanuel Macron has arrived in Athens for talks with the Greek leadership. Discussions are focused on European security, defence cooperation and strategic autonomy. The meetings come amid tensions involving Iran and growing uncertainty over shipping through the Strait of Hormuz.
One of the main challenges of the European industry today, and in order to deliver this sovereignty agenda or this strategic autonomy, is about China. China has today overcapacity, is over-subsidizing a lot of sectors, and is literally killing a large part of the European industry. And we are clearly too slow to see that. And at the same time, there is now a doubt on the Article 5, not put on the table by the Europeans, but by the US president. And I mean, it's clearly a de facto weakening of the strength of the alliance. And what we are ready to do in Tbilisi, in the Arctic region, vis-a-vis Russia on some security issues, on Ukraine, with the coalition of the willing, in Eastern Mediterranean Sea, with our common operations on Hormuz Strait Night, OTs, not NATO's operations. This is the Europeans working together and building common security solutions. So I really believe that what we are creating is a European pillar of NATO's, but as well a European capacity of defense and security.
I think rebalancing the relationship with the US inevitably will be the result of a stronger Europe. Otherwise, the relationship is going to be lopsided, and we will be eventually pushed around without being able to assert and defend our own positions.
Mexico is demanding the deportation of former Vice Admiral Fernando Ferraes Laguna, who has been detained in Argentina. He's accused of involvement in fuel smuggling and organised crime. The case has raised questions over legal cooperation and extradition between the two countries.
He fled the country, and yesterday, through Interpol, which issues these red notices worldwide, he was arrested. He is currently in Argentina, and all necessary arrangements are being made with the Argentine government, the Attorney General's office, and the Foreign Affairs Ministry to see if there can be a deportation, because he entered Argentina with a false passport. So deportation is being requested, and if that's not possible, then extradition conditions would be established.
The United States Justice Department has proposed expanding execution methods for federal death row inmates. The plan, backed by President Donald Trump's administration, includes firing squads, electrician and gas asphyxiation alongside lethal injection. Officials say the change is needed due to ongoing difficulties in obtaining drugs used for injections, which have delayed executions in recent years. The policy follows the lifting of a federal moratorium and comes as prosecutors seek new death sentences, though actual executions may still take years due to legal challenges. Critics argue the decision signals both a crisis in existing practices and a more explicit use of state force.
I think first it's a testament to just how difficult lethal injection is. And then second, I mean, it's an embrace of brutality. With lethal injection, the American public could at least tell itself that these people are falling into forever sleep. It's actually not true, but that's a story we could tell ourselves. With the firing squad, that's absolutely not the case. The state violence is explicit.
Global oil trading has seen a turbulent week as markets respond to changing political and economic pressures. We now turn to how benchmark crude prices finished the week.
In the United States, West Texas Intermediate crude for June delivery slipped by $1.45, or 1.51%, to finish at $94.40 a barrel on the New York Mercantile Exchange. By contrast, Brent crude, the international benchmark, inched higher. It gained 26 cents, or 0.25%, to close at $105.33 a barrel on the London ICE Futures Exchange. The diverging performance reflects ongoing uncertainty in global energy markets, as traders balance concerns over supply with the outlook for demand and wider economic conditions. Earlier this week, oil prices initially opened higher after reports of attacks on ships in the Strait of Hormuz, briefly touching $100 before easing again and slipping to around $97.60 a barrel. Overall, energy markets have remained volatile and fluctuating amid ongoing geopolitical tensions.
China and Thailand have agreed to strengthen cooperation. The issue was discussed during a meeting between Thai Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. Thailand said it supports the One China policy and is ready to continue cooperation with Beijing. The two sides also discussed joint efforts to combat online gambling and telecommunications fraud. Anutin thanked China for its support over the Thailand-Cambodia border issue. Wang Yi said China is a reliable partner for Thailand. He added that cooperation in energy, infrastructure and agriculture would be expanded. China also said it would continue to support dialogue between Thailand and Cambodia. From retro-inspired electric models to next-generation battery tech, Beijing's auto show is offering a glimpse into the future of driving.
The 2026 Beijing International Automotive Exhibition opened on Friday, with Full Good Motors classic EV models among the first to draw crowds, setting the tone for a show focused on innovation and design. Attention quickly spread across the floor, where BYD attracted large audiences with its Celion 06 and Seal 07 models. The company also unveiled its new Blade 2 battery technology, while a special Seal 07 edition inspired by the video game Black Myth, Wukong, proved a hit with younger visitors. Meanwhile, Great Wall Motor showcased the WIV9X, the first model built on its Guyuan S platform, alongside the Roewe M7 presented by SAIC Motor. Leapmotor, backed by Stellantis, launched its flagship D19 SUV, while the Zeekr 8X also drew attention from visitors, exploring its interior features. Across the exhibition, one trend stood out. Larger three-row, six-seat SUVs are emerging as the key battleground for Chinese automakers, highlighting a growing focus on space, technology and competition in the EV market.
Now we'll take a look at the key stories shaping the region. Now, as we brought to you our breaking news earlier, Presidents Ilham Aliyev and Volodymyr Zelenskyy have held talks in Azerbaijan, highlighting strong political ties, energy cooperation and mutual support for territorial integrity. While Zelenskyy also signalled Ukraine's readiness to hold peace talks with Russia in Azerbaijan if Moscow is willing to engage. To better understand how these dynamics are shaping Azerbaijan-Ukraine relations, let's bring in our guest. Joining us from Baku is Fuat Karimli, political analyst. Fuat, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So this visit places strong emphasis on humanitarian cooperation, from energy support to rehabilitation programs. How central is this dimension to Azerbaijan-Ukraine relations?
Well, first of all, we see that since the start of the invasion, that humanitarian assistance has been the core of the relationship between Azerbaijan and Ukraine. So up until now, I think there's been more than $40 million worth of aid being sent to Ukraine, humanitarian aid. But this is not just specific food products or simple things like that. It includes a wide variety of aid. So from solar panels to specific energy needs as well. So that's why energy is also a central part of the discussions today. So yes, aid has been one of the central parts of the mutual relationship between Azerbaijan and Ukraine in the years.
And Zelenskyy also said that he'd be willing to hold talks with Russia in Azerbaijan. So Azerbaijan, talking about Azerbaijan as a possible platform for mediation between the two sides. How do you see that playing out? Do you think we'll see something come to fruition on that front?
Yes, that was certainly interesting development. I think a lot of people were already kind of expecting something like that, because I think Zelensky's first visit to the region since the war broke out. And it's significant that the first visit takes place in Azerbaijan. And one of the also other significant factors is that there's been development between Azerbaijan recently, specifically about the downing of the Azerbaijan Airlines passenger plane. Russia agreed to pay compensation and it's the incident further and take blame for it, basically. So it kind of shows that the role that Azerbaijan can play even with major powers that are neighboring it in the region. So I think Zelensky's visit specifically after that between Azerbaijan and Russia on the Azal Airlines crash, it shows that Ukraine and specifically Zelensky understands the role that Azerbaijan can play in this multipolar world. Even though it is a regional actor, it still has that ability to bring these kind of big powers together. And specifically after the war with the Second Karabakh War, the progress that's been made between Azerbaijan and Armenia, it shows that in an increasingly difficult and volatile, war-torn world that we live in right now, the peace between Azerbaijan and Armenia is exemplary. So it's still ongoing, it's still developing, and we're learning how to do it. We're learning how to live in peace. So why not act as a platform to bring peace between Ukraine and Russia?
And Fuad, given Azerbaijan's own post-conflict experience, particularly in demining and reconstruction, how realistic is its potential role in Ukraine's future recovery efforts, which is also another thing that surely would have been discussed between the two leaders?
Well, when we look at this Ukraine, the war has been going on for a long time. It's been many years. So the destruction there it's at an unprecedented level. So whenever the peace happens, hopefully it will be soon, reconstruction is one of the major things that needs to take place. And considering that Azerbaijan has significant expertise in this field, taking into consideration that we had 20% of our land occupied for more than 30 years, and also significant part of it having landmines. So Azerbaijan is one of the most heavily landmine placed countries in the world. And in the past few years, specifically in regions like Aghdam, Azerbaijan has had extensive operations to demine the region. So I think Ukraine could really use some of the best practices that we've been implementing and testing out, at least in Karabakh ourselves. So there could be definitely form operation there, as well as the rebuilding of the cities.
So Azerbaijan has maintained a balanced position from the outset here, avoiding any military role while supporting territorial integrity. How does this approach shape its credibility as a partner to both Ukraine and the wider region, and again, affecting its possible role as a potential mediator?
Well, I think that's one of the most important parts of the place of Azerbaijan in this situation. So not taking the military sides in the conflict, it also gives you that benefit of to be a mediator at least. However, Azerbaijan has also stated that the territorial integrity of countries should not be, violated. But there's also the situation of having good relations with neighbors. It's part of the multi-vector foreign policy that's been taking place for years and has been very successful. So when looking at that, it doesn't necessarily mean that that Azerbaijan has to take sides. The beauty of that is that you can be a mediator and bring peace. So you can give humanitarian aid to Ukraine, but you can also, promote peace in the region as well.
Okay. Fouad, thank you so much for joining us on the program today. We appreciate your insight and analysis.
Thank you for having me.
A series of meetings on the Trans-Caspian International Transport Route were held in Astana, Kazakhstan, where the 2026 action plan was approved. Representatives from several countries took part in the discussions. The main focus of the plan is the digitalization of transport, including electronic documentation and faster data exchange with customs authorities, aimed at making cargo transport quicker and more transparent. An increase in container traffic is also planned, with around 600 trains from China expected to pass through Kazakhstan in 2026. The plan further includes strengthening cooperation between ports in the Caspian region. Participants underlined the growing role of TITR as a key transit route between Asia and Europe, and a number of documents were signed. Kazakhstan also plans to expand its network of railway terminals abroad, with capacity expected to rise to 2.7 million containers by 2028. For more on this, let's cross to Istanbul now and get the latest from our correspondent, Adam Morrow.
The agreement was signed in London during meetings between Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan and UK Home Secretary Yvette Cooper, as part of a broader effort to formalise and expand cooperation between the two countries. Officials say the framework is designed to give greater structure to an already established relationship, setting out clearer areas of coordination across defence, counter-terrorism and regional security. In a joint statement, both sides underlined the importance of deterrence and collective defence, describing NATO as the foundation of security across the Euro-Atlantic. They also stressed the need to maintain strong transatlantic ties in order to respond effectively to emerging global challenges. The agreement places a particular focus on defence industry collaboration, with both countries looking to deepen cooperation in production, procurement and technological development. Beyond security, the framework also highlights growing alignment on energy and climate issues, with plans to strengthen coordination on energy resilience and sustainability, as well as joint efforts in science, technology and innovation. Economic ties are also expected to play a central role. Both sides signaled their intention to increase trade and investment, with ongoing discussions aimed at modernizing the existing free trade agreement to better reflect current economic conditions. Officials say the deal reflects a shared view in both Ankara and London that closer coordination is needed in an increasingly complex global environment where economic, security and technological challenges are becoming more interconnected. This is Adam Morrow for A News in Istanbul, Turkey.
Climate pressure in Central Asia is no longer a future threat, it is already being felt. That was the key message as the Regional Environmental Summit in Astana wrapped up. Let's cross now to A News' Fariza Kalimurzina for the details.
The Regional Environmental Summit in Astana is wrapping up. Around 1,500 participants from Central Asia, the European Union and the Middle East took part. The message from leaders here is consistent. Climate pressure in the region is no longer a future risk, it's already being felt. Against this backdrop, regional cooperation is becoming a key focus. Uzbek President Shavkat Mirziyoyev proposed the Clean Air of Central Asia Consortium to attract green financing and cut emissions. He warned that temperatures are rising twice as fast as the global average. Nearly a third of glaciers are gone and around 80 million hectares of land are degraded, with the lowest emitting countries facing the strongest impact. Water security is another growing concern. More than 1,300 glaciers in Tajikistan have already disappeared. However, they provide up to 60% of the region's water, according to Tajik President Emomali Rahmon. faster melting is disrupting the water balance and raising the risk of disasters with longer and more frequent dust storms. Tajikistan is proposing a regional glacier monitoring center and steps towards a carbon market. At the same time, tensions around water use are also coming into focus. Sadr Japarov said Kyrgyzstan maintains key water infrastructure while other countries benefit, and called for compensation mechanisms, including financial support or energy supplies. All of this reflects a broader set of challenges facing the region, from water shortages and land degradation to air pollution and biodiversity loss. The pressure is building, Kasım-Jomart Tokayev said. He stressed that coordinated action is needed. He also urged that the Caspian Sea should not be used for military purposes. Separately, he warned that falling water levels are already putting its ecosystem at risk. Leaders adopted a joint declaration and agreed on an action plan through 2030. The focus now is on delivery. According to the United Nations, around 12 million people in Central Asia already face food shortages driven by climate change and water scarcity. That's why regional coordination is now seen as critical. Fariza Kalimurzina, Almaty, A News.
That's the news for this hour. Stay tuned to A News for all the latest updates.